Hey guys, my name is Steve and I see you all. Did I see you all? I see you all. Though a little late, today I'm talking about the movie Avatar: The Way of Water. Guys, let me tell you, this movie is amazing. Where the first movie lacked, this one more than compensates. So 3 years of shooting, plenty of waiting for the right technology for underwater motion capture, a budget of up to $460 million, and 13 years since the original Avatar was released in 2009, I'd say this movie was more than worth the wait. Alright, so the return to Pandora sees Sam Worthington's Jake Sully living peacefully with his new family of 6 when the Sky People make their return. With the Na'vi and the Sky People at war, the humans turn to a familiar face to lead the mission to eliminate the leader of the Na'vi, Jake Sully. That familiar face, it's a minor spoiler, but it is in the trailer and at the start of the movie, but it's Colonel Quaritch. How is he back, you wondered? He died in the first movie. Well, this is explained through some exposition through a video diary from Stephen Lang's character. But basically his memories were saved before his death and they were then uploaded into an avatar. So he leads a group of other similar marine avatars in the hunt for Jake Sully. This forces Sully and his family to leave their forest home and head for a new home far away on the sea with the people called the Matinee. So while that hunt for Sully continues, him and his family have to adapt to this new way of life, the way of water. So first, if you're wondering how you should see this movie, then the bigger, the better. This movie was filmed with 3D cameras specifically designed for this use and James Cameron. So this movie is meant to be as immersive as possible. So 3D is definitely the way to go. This movie wasn't converted to 3D in post. Also, if your theater boasts high frame rate or HFR, then that might be a route to consider as well. Yeah, there were a lot of action scenes filmed at 48 frames per second, making for a hyper-realistic world and action sequences. It's kind of similar to what Peter Jackson did with The Hobbit, and it could look a little weird, especially when it switches back and forth. Some people say it's too real. This movie wasn't shot on IMAX cameras, however, but the large format still would be incredible in either way. So standouts for this movie would obviously be the visuals. The underwater sequences in particular really just blew me away. And what's really cool about this movie is that even though it's CGI, the actors were really underwater performing this, making it even more incredible. Actually, I think Kate Winslet was said to have been able to hold her breath for 7 minutes, 14 seconds. Incredible. Yeah, after this movie, I was ready to go home, fill my tub, and try it myself. So I also enjoy the story in this one. In the first movie, the story was lacking behind that technical aspect. It was basically dances with wolves or ferngully, and we didn't really care for Jake Sully or the Na'vi. Not as much as they wanted us to, at least. But The Way of Water totally changes that. Introducing the family, there's a lot more emotion in each scene, and I think it was a really good idea to include the children. Actually, there's a lot of implications for future movies with those children. Another standout would be, of course, the action. It plays like a James Cameron highlight reel. Mech robots, alien life, underwater action sequences, people handcuffed to rails, and sinking ships. The third act in this movie was spectacular. But there is plenty of action throughout the whole movie to get you to that finale. The second act is basically the family adapting to their new way of life, getting familiar with the underwater world, and us doing the same vicariously. It actually had some of my favorite sequences. Learning to ride these new creatures, one of the daughter's first experience underwater, and also learning about the new dangers that includes. So while that second act is perhaps overly long, the 192-minute runtime just flew by. I wasn't bored at all. What I didn't like about the movie kind of lies in that spoiler region, so I won't say much, but it did involve the villain and the resolution for that. I'm curious about where that third story will go, and if it's going to be kind of more of the same thing. But this movie is definitely going to be in the awards talk, particularly for Best Picture as the big blockbuster entry, and of course, Best Director and Visual Effects. As I said, I'm kind of curious about where those sequels are gonna go, but the possible titles can give us some hints. The third movie is possibly going to be called The Seed Bearer, which obviously involves one of the new female characters introduced in this movie. Though as a Disney-backed movie, I'm kind of curious about that title. The fourth movie is supposed to be called The Tulkun Rider, which we are introduced to in The Way of Water as the Pandoran whales. We also got a Tulkun Rider in this movie. And the fifth possible title is The Quest for Awa, which is kind of like the goddess of Pandora, or like Mother Nature for them. But that story, up in the air. Either way, I'm sure some of these titles are going to be changing by the time of their release. For letter grade, I'm giving this movie a solid A. It was quite the experience and one hell of an action movie, but the motivation for this war might be becoming a bit repetitive. Either way, you definitely want to get out there and catch it while you can in theaters. Alright guys, that's about all there is. Just a quick review, mostly spoiler free. Alright guys, see you on the next one.